All right, after school. After school. This is a pretty popular YouTube channel, and they advertise themselves as wanting to fill your mind with information to help you be your best self.
The underlying goal of this channel is to feed your mind and help you be your best self.
Doesn't that sound wonderful, folks? I think it sounds wonderful. Who doesn't want to be their best self and live the best life possible? So let's see how this video helps you be your best self. It's called Why You Shouldn't Want to Live Forever. So keep all this in mind, folks. By the way, this video I think has 166,000 views at this moment.
Now, there really isn't anything radically wrong with being sick or with dying.
All right, nothing too radically wrong with being sick or dying, except for the fact that life ceases. You cease to exist as a conscious entity. Also, being sick. I was just sick a few weeks ago. I had the flu, and I remember for the first 2 to 3 days of having the flu, it was a total nightmare. My whole body was aching, especially my head and neck, constant pain, drifting in and out of sleep. I was never comfortable. I was either too hot or too cold. Sometimes I'd wake up and my blanket would be soaked in sweat. I felt like I fell asleep in a wet burrito. So then I'd get out of my covers and I'd be hot, but then I'd be cold after 5 minutes, and I wouldn't want to put my blanket on because again it was soaked in sweat. I had no appetite. It was totally miserable. But according to this guy, nothing too radically wrong with being sick or dying.
Who said you're supposed to survive?
I said I'm supposed to survive because, again, I want to live the best life possible. I want to be my best self. And in order to live a good, long, happy, flourishing life, survival is a requirement. And yes, because time and life are finite, because human beings are mortal, and I want to be happy. I want to get as much milk out of this cow called life as I possibly can. And in order to do that, I need to stay alive. I need to avoid death.
Who gave you the idea that it's a gas to go on and on and on? And we can't say that it's a good thing for everything to go on living.
Has anyone ever said that it's a good thing for everything to go on living? Like, if my house is infested with cockroaches, I don't want those things to go on living. I want an exterminator to come in and destroy all of them. Kill them all the cockroaches. Or if I'm hungry and if I'm in the mood for a double bacon cheeseburger, then, of course, a certain pig and a certain cow are gonna have to not go on living forever as they find their way to my plate and in between two slices of bread that us human beings call buns. So I don't think anyone's arguing that everything should go on living forever, but if you're living a good life, if you're, happy, then why not try to keep that life going?
From the very simple demonstration that if we enable everybody to go on living, we overcrowd ourselves.
Well, I'm sure if we ever found immortality, we might have a discussion about bringing in new life. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay, Thanos? Whatever you guys do, keep the Infinity Stones out of Alan Watts' hand.
We're like an unpruned tree. And so, therefore, one person who dies, in a way, is honorable because he's making room for others.
Isn't that wonderful? Death is, it's honorable because you're making room for others. Doesn't that sound good? Again, this is the great contradiction with the concept of altruism. Somehow, it's good for other people to be happy and selfish. It's just not good for you to be happy and selfish. And it's good for you to die because other people get to live. Well, who's to say that you both can't live at the same time? It's not like we need to have a fixed amount of human beings in the world. But either way, no. Death is not honorable because you're making room for other human beings. Why do they get to live and I don't? Would it be honorable for them to die so that other people? I mean, it's just an endless cycle of death.
And the panic that all life everywhere must be saved, although each one of us individually will naturally appreciate it when anybody saves our life.
Hell yeah.
If we apply that case, you see, all around, we can see that it's not workable.
By what standard is it not workable to save others and to prolong life?
We can also look further into it and see that if our death could be indefinitely postponed, we would not actually go on postponing it indefinitely.
Says who? Again, if life is good, so long as you're somewhat healthy, and society has not, the world has not gone to shit, then why not keep living? Why not, especially if medical technology, apparently people are finding ways to reverse aging and prolong life. I mean, come on, the average rate of death, wasn't it around like 35, 40 years old 200 years ago? And now I think the average age of death is probably somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s. So at some point, people decided to keep going. Maybe eventually we'll find ways to live for hundreds of years. And who wouldn't want to do that? Aren't you guys curious about the future? I am. All this talk about colonizing and terraforming planets like Mars. Maybe colonize the moon. Maybe there'll be a day, maybe hundreds of years in the future, for just a low payment, low cost, you can take a vacation to Mars. Or go to the moon and back. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, think about if you went 100 years back and you were telling everyone how great 2020 is and how, we have all this amazing technology. We have flight. We're flying all over the world. You can go from New York City to London in less than a day. If you're hungry, for just 5 minutes, for just 15 minutes of work, you can go to a nearby restaurant. You can go to there are dozens of restaurants in your area you can choose from. Panda Express, McDonald's, Taco Bell, pizza joints. Got a lot of variety. Got amazing theme parks, video games. I mean, you name it. If you were living back in the 15th, 16th century and someone told you about all this, automobiles, wouldn't you be like, man, I'd like to check that out. Sure beats living what we have today. Living with what we have today. So yeah, I'm curious. I want to see what the future holds. All the cool shit that's unimaginable at this point. Especially if my life is good, if I'm healthy, as long as I'm not in constant pain and agony. Then why not keep going?
Because after a certain point, we would realize that that isn't the way in which we wanted to survive. Why else?
Well, speak for yourself, buddy.
Why else would we have children?
Well, there are plenty of good and bad reasons to have children, and people have children for good reasons. Other people have children for irrational reasons. But guess we're about to find out why we really have children.
Because children arrange for us to survive in another way. By, as it were, passing on a torch.
All right.
So that you don't have to carry it all the time. There comes a point where you can give it up and say, now you work.
Get back to work! Yeah, that's why you have kids, folks, so that you can give them burdens and obligations to go work, and so you can pass. What does he mean by a torch, by the way? Like, what if I don't want to give up the torch? What if I'm someone like Charles Koch, who's 85 years old, and still works full time, gets up at 7 in the morning every day, goes to work to run his giant conglomerate. And I remember a few years ago, someone asked Charles Koch if he was planning on retiring, and he said with a laugh that if he retired, he'd probably be dead in a couple weeks. And he's probably right. And he probably loves his job and loves what he does. Why would he want to just hand that off to someone else? Why would he want to just call it quits? Life is good. Let's keep it going. But also, you're assuming that your children are going to want to grab the torch from you. I mean, there are probably plenty of examples you can think of where a family starts a business and they want to hand the reins on to their kids, and their kids aren't really that interested. The kids want to eventually go do something else, which is totally fine. You know, I don't think people should have kids to pass torches onto and to give obligation. Here, you go work. What a wonderful reason to have kids. By the way, and also, assuming we reach a point where we can endlessly prolong life, then why would we need to have kids? I mean, if you have a brilliant doctor or scientist who can keep you alive and they're immortal, do you really need to keep bringing kids in to do work? If the immortals are still interested in working and producing?
It's a far more amusing arrangement for nature to continue the process of life through different individuals than it is always with the same individual. Because as each new individual approaches life, life is renewed.
No, it's not. Your life is individualistic. It's not. Life isn't just this magical, endless cycle where you're just a placeholder between two other living organisms. No, you have your own life. And if you have kids, they're going to have their own life. And when you die, other living organisms will go on. But you're not part of this. This is just pure collectivism and mysticism.
And one remembers how fascinating the most ordinary everyday things are to a child.
Well, they can be fascinating to adults too. I'm always fascinated by big, beautiful mountains and beach landscapes and whatnot. But yeah, usually when, and I'm not trying to straw man here, but usually when people get all pop a bunch of boners for nature, they always use examples like this: colorful butterflies. Oh, aren't they beautiful? Or they use majestic creatures like a lion, or cute animals like a little bunny rabbit, or a cute little puppy or kitten. And I remember when I was in college, I'll never forget it. I was walking to class. It was a beautiful spring afternoon, nice weather, nice sunny day. And while I was walking to class, I noticed a butterfly just flying around toward the ground. It was yellow and white, if I recall, and black. Remember, there was a lot of yellow on this butterfly. And it was flying around. I'm like, oh, what a cool looking butterfly. And then a chipmunk comes out of nowhere and snatches the butterfly and eats it. He like fucking inhaled it. And then ran off into the bushes. That's nature for you. Or a couple years ago, when I was walking around in North Hollywood, I saw a dead cockroach getting devoured by a bunch of ants. And I remember this because I posted it on Twitter saying, "Isn't nature beautiful?" A cockroach getting eaten by a bunch of ants. See, no one talks about the uglier parts of nature.
Because they see them all as marvelous, because they see them all in a way that is not related.
The point here is not to just hate on nature. I'm just saying it's not all sunshine and butterflies and rainbows.
Related to survival and profit.
Oh no, survival and profit. Ooh, can't have that. Survival and profit. You know, again, this is the great contradiction. Life is good, but death is also good. Why? And profit. Profit's great too. Profit enables survival. It's very life-affirming, the profit motive. You think especially about the example of how big oil saved the whales. Because before the discovery of kerosene, people were hunting whales for blubber and selling it in oil form to illuminate rooms. And it was really expensive and hard to get. But then in the meantime, no one wanted oil. Oil was just perceived as this disgusting black sludge that came out of the ground. And if you had property near on oil fields, it was very undesirable because it was constantly dirty and littered with oil. But then kerosene was discovered. And then people thought, wow, if we can turn this black sludge into gold by turning it into kerosene, and there's a high demand for it because people want to be productive. People want to stay up at night if they need to study or need to keep working. They'll happily pay us if we can get this oil out of the ground and refine it into kerosene. And then maybe in the future have it fuel automobiles and other machines. And people got rich and whales got saved. And the standard of living went through the roof as a result.
When we get to thinking of everything in terms of survival and profit value, as we do, then the shapes of scratches on the floor cease to have magic.
Well, they never had magic to begin with.
And most things, in fact, cease.
Look at this guy demonizing skyscrapers and automobiles while he talks about magic and butterflies. I mean, who's done more for you? An automobile? What's improved your life more, a butterfly or an automobile? That's a rhetorical question.
Magic. So therefore, in the course of nature, once we have ceased to see magic in the world anymore, we are no longer fulfilling nature's game of being aware of itself.
Get the fuck out of here. Nature no longer fulfilling nature's game of being aware of itself. Nature is not aware of itself because nature is not a conscious entity. It is not a living organism. Like I said, this is just pure mysticism and collectivism. That, hey, death isn't so bad. Why are we so obsessed with surviving and profit? If we're obsessed with that, then we're not fulfilling nature's game. Who said nature had a fucking game? We know it doesn't have a game because, again, it's not a conscious entity. By the way, going back to what I said at the beginning, do you guys feel like this information is going to help you be your best self and live the best life possible?
There's no point in it anymore. And so we die. And so something else comes to birth, which gets an entirely new view. And so nature's self-awareness is a game worth the candle.
Nature's self-awareness.
It is not, therefore, natural for us to wish to prolong life indefinitely.
Well, even if that's true, who cares if it's not natural? Again, there's nothing valuable about nature qua nature.
Prolong life indefinitely. But we live in a culture where it has been rubbed into us in every conceivable way that to die is a terrible thing.
That's because it is. What's wrong with that? I also don't know how true that is.
And that is a tremendous disease from which our culture in particular suffers.
Well, what's wrong with the disease? Aren't they part of nature?
There really isn't anything radically wrong with being sick.
If nature gives you a horrible disease like cancer or AIDS, maybe that's just nature, the self-aware nature selecting you out so it can keep the life cycle going.
In particular suffers. And we notice it firstly in the way in which death is swept under the carpet.
Well, you're trying to sweep life under the carpet. Oddly enough, in the name of life.
This is one of the major problems in hospital work. When a family conspires with the doctor to keep from grandmother the knowledge that she is dying. Grandmother
I don't know why a doctor would want to keep that away from their patient, but okay.
Suspects that she is dying, but probably doesn't really want to know for sure. And her family talk with her in such a way as to say, well, it'll be, you'll probably be getting all right in a few weeks. And won't it be nice to be able to do this, that, and the other? Because they have this funny feeling that it's important to build up courage.
Well, if there is a chance of survival, I mean, is there anything wrong with that with your family? Assuming there's a slim chance of survival. I mean, if there's no hope, then you might as well be honest with them. I guess he has a point there. But if there's a slim chance of survival, then wouldn't you want encouragement? Like, hey, you can do this. We believe in you. You've had tougher battles in your life. You're gonna overcome this, and you have plenty of years ahead of you. You're gonna get over this. Trust me. We believe in you, Grandma. Would you rather have that kind of encouragement, or would you rather have someone like Alan Watts at your bed, at your hospital bed, saying, you know, maybe death isn't so bad because you're going to help continue the cycle of life, and you're fulfilling nature's game of being aware of itself. So, you know, I don't know why you're in this hospital trying to survive. Why are we so obsessed with survival and death? I mean, I would much rather have the people who give me encouragement. Maybe that's just me, though.
And hope. And so they become liars.
Liar!
And a mutual mistrust develops. Because once you are playing the game on that level, you tend to play the mistrust on other levels.
All right.
And so the person is left to die alone, suddenly, unprepared, and doped up to the point where death hardly happens.
Well, it sure happens.
And there is no...
And why is he suddenly talking about this like it's a tragedy? When he's trying to say, death, not so bad.
derivation from it of the peculiar spiritual experience that can come with death.
Hell yeah, I can't wait to have that spiritual experience. And then not have another experience ever again.
So you see, this is always the opportunity presented by death.
Opportunity presented by death? No, death is the end of opportunity. Because once you're dead, your life is over. So any opportunities you had, whether it's going out on a date with someone you're attracted to, or going to play in the Super Bowl, or winning a sweepstakes, all expenses paid vacation to Hong Kong or Japan or Russia or wherever's nice to visit these days. Not Russia. That was a joke. But all those opportunities are over.
Game over!
Rest in peace, Raul Julia. Thanks for making room for new people and helping nature stay aware of itself.
That's an oxymoron, opportunity from death.
That if one can go into death with eyes open.
Well, those eyes are going to get shut pretty quick there, buddy. It's kind of like that scene from Game of Thrones when that sexy witch lady met Arya Stark and she said, "Oh my God, I see blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes. Eyes that are going to shut forever because Arya Stark's going to kill him." Yeah, once you're dead, your perception comes to a screeching halt.
To give up before you die. This extraordinary thing can happen to you. So that from your standpoint, in that position at that time, you would say, I wouldn't have missed that opportunity for the world. Now I understand why.
Speak for yourself.
Understand why we die. The reason we die is to give us the opportunity to understand what life's all about.
Oh, how wonderful. Do you need to die to learn that lesson, by the way? Like, I'm sure if I put my hand on a rock and I let someone smash it with a sledgehammer, I'm sure that would be very painful. But I don't need to experience it to know that it will be painful. Just like I don't need to personally die to understand that I am mortal and life is finite. I can just use my observation of other organisms dying and ceasing to exist.
And what life's all about. By letting go. because then we come to a situation that the ego can't deal with. When we are no longer hypnotized by that, then our natural consciousness can see clearly what all this universe is for. So, therefore, we have missed this golden opportunity by institutionalizing death out of the way, instead of having a socially understood.
I mean, there's all this talk about Medicare for all and socializing medicine in the United States. Well, just make medicine illegal. Make practicing medicine and hospitals, just outlaw all of them, because death isn't so bad. Why do you want to prolong life so much?
Acceptance of death and rejoicing in death. So it follows from that, you see, that if any one of us could at this moment be as one about to die, genuinely and honestly, we would understand the mystery of life. Because death is in a certain sense, the source of life.
Death is the end of life.
Just as we see in nature, when the leaves fall from the trees, they mold and rot, and this supplies humus from which more plants can grow. It's a cycle like that.
So you hear that, folks? When you die, it's no different than a leaf. You're basically the same as a leaf falling off of a tree. And, when you die, your body turns into food for other organisms like worms and bacteria and shit. And where, new life can thrive off of your dead, rotting corpse. Isn't that great, folks? I can understand when it comes to mysticism. I can understand the appeal of religions, especially religions like Christianity, where you have this idea that when you're dead, when you die, your spirit goes to another dimension. It goes to heaven, and everything's going to be great so long as you followed the rules and were a good little boy on earth. And you get to see all the people that you lost during your life. You get to meet your dead relatives, it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows once you're in heaven. I can get the appeal of death in something like that, but when it comes to this nature environmentalist nonsense, why do you die? Oh, well, you might cease to exist. You'll never have a thought or an experience, a good experience. You'll never have fun ever again. But hey, you're continuing the cycle of life. You're part of nature's game of being aware of itself. Isn't that great?
Here to the now, here to the now, to the now.
But in every way, symbolic and otherwise, human beings try to stop that cycle.
Good.
Unamuno said, human beings are the only species that hoard their dead.
True. And there's good reason for that. I don't think it's good to have corpses just lying about the ground. They can spread diseases. They can attract pests like rats and insects, unwanted insects and whatnot. It's not aesthetically pleasing to see corpses. I mean, I guess you could do other things with them. You could throw them in the ocean or burn them or whatever. But and I know there are some religious reasons for burying the dead, or as they say, hoarding the dead. But I would say when it comes to burial, there are some legitimate reasons for it.
Dead. And therefore, with the ghastly art of the mortician, we try to make the body unpalatable to the worms. And so
who gives a shit? Fuck the worms.
To stop life, as if to be eaten in due course were an indignity to the human being.
Yes, I mean, it's clear what this guy cares about. He cares about nature and this notion of a life cycle and passing on the torch, and don't worry too much about death because you get to be worm food. What's so bad about that? And those worms will help create other forms of life. Other organisms might feed off the worm. You get the picture. And I would say, look, if a worm wants to eat so bad, then what they need to do is they need to evolve to the point where they have sizable brains that are capable of reason. And once these worms have achieved the ability to reason like us humans, then eventually maybe they'll too figure out how to construct a Taco Bell or maybe a Panda Express or a McDonald's where they too can efficiently produce food at a low cost. Anyways, I'm curious to know what you guys think of this video and the channel After School, which I am very new to, and for all I know, they might have plenty of good content, but they want to feed your mind to help you be your best self. So I'm curious, what did you guys think of this video? Has this video inspired you to be your best self and to live a good life and the best life possible?
Let us know in the comment section below.
So if you guys were paying attention during that rebuttal video, you would have noticed a slight jump, a weird cut at some point during the video right here. Well, if there is a chance of survival, and the reason for that is because for whatever reason, while I was recording, the software stopped and then started recording again for a split second, so it kind of looks goofy now, and there wasn't really a way to fix it, so it is what it is, and I really hope you guys can forgive me. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, you get the drill.